The White House accredits vloggers.
Yes,
diba?
definitely.
The whole world has recognized vloggers. Kumbaga, without the backing of a major network, you should still be able to access primary sources of information. Sino bang nagsasabi na kailangan journalist ka?
Kaya nga may accreditation if standards are what they are worried about.
Yes.
Kaya nga may accreditation. Di naman, bubuksan namin yung pinto, lahat kayo papasok, di ba, Ina?
Yes. So, and there would also be expectations dun sa mga vloggers, how they conduct themselves, and of course, constant scrutiny din yung kanilang mga vlogs. Well, I wasn't officially a spokesperson. The president would speak for himself. I spoke for government.
Hanggang ngayon naman, he would speak for himself eh.
That is correct. That's correct. Wala siyang spokes. He didn't want to... well, ayaw kasi ni presidente. He didn't want to have anybody speak for him. Siya yung magsasalita. What we would do is we would brief the media about decisions that were made, what happens in cabinet meetings, policies, both those that are in the works and final decisions, mga ganon.
Mga kababayan, ito po ang ating pag-uusapan. Ang daming kwento at pasabog ni Atty. Trixie Cruz Angeles sa talk show nila ni Atty. Topacio. Unang-una ipinagtanggol niyang pag-accredit sa mga vloggers sa Malacanang. Sabi niya ginagawa naman yan sa White House at hindi dapat ipagdamot ang balita dahil lang walang malaking network para sa kanya. Wala nang monopoly ang traditional media dahil lahat po ngayon daw ay may smartphone na para makapag-report. Tungkol naman sa politika, bumanat siya sa administrasyon ngayon. Sabi niya parang bumababa ang approval ratings nito dahil mas focus ang political gain at maling payo. Ikinumpara rin niya si Duterte kay Bangag, mga kabayan, kasi daw po si Duterte ay alam ang batas bilang abogado habang si Bangag daw po ay ngiwi daw po ng ngiwi. Ay, joke lang po, mga kabayan. Habang si Bangag daw po madalas magsalita ng walang briefing. Parang ngiwi, kaya kailangan po niya ng teleprompter, mga kabayan. Kaya po siya parang ngiwi ng ngiwi pag nag-i-interview, kailangan po ng teleprompter. Hindi niya po ba napapansin kapag ini-interview tong Pangulo natin parang may binabasa. Kaya kailangan talaga siyang gabayan doon sa mga interviews niya, mga kababayan. Ayaw na ayaw rin niya na pagkialamanan ng gobyerno ang social media. Sabi po ni Atty. Trixie, sabi niya, ang mga mababatas lang ang gustong mag-regulate kasi pikon sila pag nababasto po sila online. Sa huli, nagpayo siya sa kabataan na huwag magpa-apekto sa online trolls. Pag-usapan po natin yung mga kabayan. Pero bago po lahat, mga kabayan, kung hindi ka pa nakasubscribe sa ating channel, mag-subscribe ka na para updated ka lagi sa mga videos natin at para kumalat ng video natin sa iba pa natin, mga kabayan. Salamat po. Let's go.
Ina, we are so lucky to have a very big name for our pilot episode. At since lady yung ating guest, at ikaw ay lady rin, sabi nga ng mga French, Après-vous, madam. Ikaw nang unang mag-shoot ng first question.
Hi, Atty. Trixie. I just want to say that you look very beautiful today.
Wow, thank you.
So my first question is, you were among the early political content creators online before political blogging became mainstream. Did you realize at the same time that digital media would become this powerful?
No, actually. Most of no.
Very candid siya. No.
Hindi talaga. Kasi actually what we were using Facebook for, if you remember, were personal thoughts, yung mga, pinasimuno namin yung mga status messages that you would use. You would actually use status messages for other messaging. Halimbawa, dati, eating, sleeping, usually ganon. Tapos mamaya meron ka ng, when we were doing it, pinasok namin yung iba-ibang elements, like you would give a status message like using profound sayings, or you would say something na out of the blue, like eating at such and such restaurant, the food is terrible, or something like that, or give some dimension about your character, yung mga tipong, I'd rather be asleep. Or maybe I am sleepwalking through life, mga ganon. And then, actually, it was just really for fun when we started. And then things started getting serious because there were serious...
When was this? Nung medyo pumutok na siya?
2009, we started it. And then it became a little more political as things went along. At the time, kasi I was representing, if you remember this,
Yes,
mutineers. So we were, I was often in courts martial.
Yung mga so-called rebel soldiers yan, di ba?
Yes. So everyone from Oakwood, Manila Pen, Fort Bonifacio.
Kasama ko si Trillanes dyan?
I was never his lawyer.
Curious lang ako. Kasi,
But I just want to make that very clear na hindi ako yung lawyer niya. So I represented a lot of Marine officers. And then, of course, then Captain Faldon, later on Commissioner ng Customs.
Yes.
Sino po ba? NFA Administrator Jason Aquino
yes,
was a
Jason,
major at the time. Danny Lim, General Miranda, Colonel Segumalyan, all of these, they were big names at the time.
Ang tawag nga, the usual suspects.
Totoo yan. So, but even in history, later on, lilitaw talaga yung mga pangalan na yun.
So, you pioneer ka ng social media, no? So, I remember very well na when you were press secretary, you made the proposal na aside from yung legacy or mainstream media na tinatawag, you wanted to accredit vloggers.
Yes.
And it was met with some vehement opposition from NUJP, yung mga mainstream. Ano tingin mo at the time? Was it because of professional jealousy or medyo may pagka-elitista, may pagka-suplado yung mga mainstream media?
Well, the elitism, I think I understand why. Because many of them either have had long careers in journalism, tapos meron silang standards. So on that issue, I understand. However, the world is changing. And even in 2022, we already realized that. The White House accredits vloggers.
Yes, definitely.
The whole world has recognized vloggers. Kumbaga, without the backing of a major network, you should still be able to access primary sources of information. Sino bang nagsasabi na kailangan journalist ka?
Kaya nga may accreditation if standards are what they are worried about.
Yes.
Kaya nga may accreditation. Di naman, bubuksan namin yung pinto, lahat kayo papasok. Di ba, Ina?
Yes. So, and there would also be expectations dun sa mga vloggers, how they conduct themselves. And of course, constant scrutiny din yung kanilang mga vlogs.
Correct.
I think this was one of the most controversial decisions that I had made.
I suppose, yes.
It did have the backing of the president.
Yun naman pala eh. Bakit? Whatever happened to that?
I suppose there were different priorities when I left.
Okay.
So, Attorney Trixie, you mentioned that you've experienced both mainstream media and digital media. Where do you think public trust is heading?
Well, I think it's for both. There's room kasi for both. The internet is so, kumbaga, ang laki ng mundo. I don't think that we can just say that one aspect or the other will have trust. What I can see is that social media is rapidly gaining trust, credibility, and reliability. So, wala na tayo. We can't say that mainstream media has the what do you call this? The monopoly on truth, or at least on reportage. If you can witness, di ba ano yung definition ng witness sa batas? You can see, you can use your senses.
You hear, you see, you touch,
to appreciate,
you feel.
an event. Who says that vloggers cannot do the same thing? Of course, mas cutthroat pa nga yung mundo ng vloggers, di ba? You can't really say. You have people who simply post about their day and they have millions of followers. And then you have some people who are very intelligent and they have only a few 100,000 followers. So, what's good about it is that you can see, you can gauge also your audience. You know how effective you are based on it. There's immediate feedback. But when traditional media started, wala silang ganon. Paano yung feedback nila? Number of newspapers sold.
Letters to the editor. Noon, naabutan ko yan
Viewership sa television was a little harder. You'd had to conduct surveys. Pero dito sa social media, it's immediate. Plus,
Real time, ano?
and
Kita mo yung
interactive.
eyeballs, ano? Nandun mo,
Correct.
2,000, 8,000, minsan 300,000 na agad.
plus, with everybody having a cell phone, everybody can be a reporter. Or at least they can send you videos. They have first-hand information. So social media rewrote how we receive as well as how we appreciate our information.
Yes, and I believe that is where mainstream media gets its insecurity, ano? Parang napag-iiwanan na sila. Anyway, you said that that proposal was met with a lot of controversy. Anyway,
Well, yes.
so...
mostly from one side.
Of course, being press secretary was not your first rodeo, so to speak, sa government.
In
Diba, you were
government,
director. Pero ibang level, siyempre, yung secretary, ano? So,
Well,
my question to you would be, when you became secretary, what surprised you most about being at that level of our government?
Well, before becoming social media, not really director, consultant actually, before that, I was NCCA commissioner. So that's the rank of undersecretary. So I know how government works, pero iba lang talaga pag culture and arts. It's like a different world. But becoming press secretary, I realized that most decisions in government don't necessarily involve study, advice, consultations. Meron palang decisions na na habang tumatakbo kayo from one room to another, the president will make a decision.
On the fly,
So meron ganon talaga. And sometimes those decisions are very important. So iba rin pala at the top level.
So what's something the public doesn't realize about the pressure of being a government spokesperson?
Well, I wasn't officially a spokesperson. The president would speak for himself. I spoke for government.
Hanggang ngayon naman, he would speak for himself, eh.
That is
Kaya
correct.
nagkakandaloko-loko
That's correct.
minsan, eh.
Wala siyang spokes. Oo. He didn't want to... well, ayaw kasi ni Presidente. He didn't want to have anybody speak for him. Siya yung magsasalita. What we would do is we would brief the media about decisions that were made, what happens in cabinet meetings, policies, both those that are in the works and final decisions, mga ganon. So we would speak about the official matters while the president would speak for himself, for his personal thoughts, feelings, ganon, and as well as for the office of the president. He preferred it that way.
Well, did you think that was wise? Or, I mean, when you went into government, that was the apogee o yung pinakamataas
Yes,
na level ng political capital and public approval ni Pangulong Marcos Jr.
It was.
And then, right now, well, it's not an opinion, it is a fact na below sea level ang approval rating niya, negative 15.
Nasa negative,
as
yes.
per latest survey. What do you think went wrong between that time that you were there at ngayon na papunta na sa tail end ng kanyang administrasyon?
I think the president has not been getting good advice, mostly. Also, nag-iba yung tempo eh. When we were there, everything was structured. You had a schedule, you have all of these. And very few decisions were made like I was saying, while you're running from one room to the other. But it does happen, but I think it happens more often now that some decisions are made not for the public interest, but for face value, for projection, for more for political gain rather than actual public gain, anything not really for the public good. So I think that's what changed. Probably the priorities changed. So, nung umpisa kasi, di ba, when you're first in Malacanang, you go there with very good intentions. You really want to do something good. You want to redeem yourself, redeem your family. There's a redemption arc that we believe was successful after the elections. And then I think that at some point, redemption no longer became the driving force. So that's
Sadly,
what changed.
Okay, so Attorney Trixie, did being inside on Malacanang change your perspectives on politics?
My perspectives on politics. Parang iba.
Nag-iba o parang iba?
Parang iba. Actually, like I said, decisions pala are made at top level in ways that we don't expect.
Yeah.
Because, for example, you're coming from a Duterte presidency where the president is a lawyer. And as a lawyer, he already knew yung basics behind it. When you make a decision, you don't have to brief him about, say, things like, Mr. President, the basis is the Constitution, Article so-and-so. President Duterte didn't need all that. And he could very well speak for himself. And I think to some degree, President Marcos thought that he could do the same thing. Despite not being a lawyer and so.
Ayun lang.
But nung time namin kasi, we would limit. For example, he would be briefed about what he was to be asked and the things that he had to say, but we also kept it to a minimum because there's also a danger. You put it. You heard the saying, you give him enough rope, he'll hang himself.
Oh, yeah.
So
Did
may ganon.
did you think he did?
Not on my watch.
Well, I agree, actually. I agree. Oo.
Walang major controversy with him. There are instances where he would say things like, wait, I'm doing this wrong, and he would be, pero hindi ko siya i-correct. And then later on, sasabihin ko na lang, sir, next time I'll give you the briefer. So, kasi sometimes he would speak without a briefer so that presidents are different. President Duterte didn't need that kasi siya gumagawa ng desisyon and before that, meron na siyang basis for the decision. So sometimes, in the case of President Marcos, there would be a recommendation. He would read the recommendation and then he would make the announcement. But sometimes, the questions are not contained in his briefer. So sometimes I would tell him that, let me write the briefer for that one next time.
Well, speaking of your watch, okay lang ba tanong ko ito? During your watch, pagka nagpe-press briefing ka, which reporter would ask the toughest questions?
Wala.
It can be one or more. Ikaw bahala.
Wala.
Wala. No tough questions.
We had a honeymoon period.
Okay, I was going to that.
There were tough questions, yes, but not impossible to answer. Sometimes kasi the reporters will push it a little, no? Minsan maggagamit sila ng unproven antecedent. Parang 'di ba when we're lawyering,
parang objection, Your Honor, no basis.
Correct.
Diba?
So,
It assumes
meron mga
facts which are
ganon.
not in evidence.
So, what if? So, there's one time they would ask questions like, what if ganito? Minsan, ang haba-haba ng what if. What if this? What if this? What if this? Okay lang if you have one variable, then you can answer. So, that's where we invent. I had to say, we don't respond to speculation.
Tama naman.
So, may
The most
mga
intelligent
ganon,
question, sino?
So,
Sa mga
ay,
naabutan mo ron?
marami naman sila. Marami naman
Care
sila.
to name a few?
No. I don't care.
Your lips are sealed.
Hindi naman sa ganun. Kasi baka nakalimutan ko yung mga pangalan nila. Mabibisto
hindi
tayo.
naman pala.
But I had a good relationship with Malacanang press corps at the time. And I wouldn't be lying to say na nung first few days na miss nila ako. They would
Okay.
say that sayang.
I'm sure.
Mga ganun
Sino
sila.
bang immediately na pumalit sa'yo?
Matagal eh.
Hindi pa naman si
It was almost
Auntie Claire,
a year.
di ba?
No, Cheloy Garafil.
As Cheloy, of course. Good old
Si Attorney
Cheloy.
Claire is an undersecretary, so she's not really, she's not press secretary. She does do the palace press briefing.
Ang title yata niya is Palace Spokesperson, ano? Parang ganon.
Something like
that.
Minsan nagbabago eh. Kasi pag tinitingnan mo, I think it depends on which network you're reporting. Minsan palace spokesperson,
May
minsan
ganon.
undersecretary.
Okay. So, Attorney Trixie, you've gone through intense criticism throughout your career. So, how do you protect your peace mentally and emotionally?
I don't pay any attention to the negative
Queen
stuff.
energy.
Well, hindi. Kasi most of the time, the negative stuff, they're superficial. Sasabihin, ano yung mga pinaka-common sa social media, di ba? Ano yan? Bayad ka, DDS ka, ganyan.
O mga expletives.
yung
Yung mga GAGO, BOBO, mga ganon.
So,
Lahat
yung mga ganon,
Mga
you know,
ad hominem.
it's not common. It's really, nothing that you should pay any attention to. Pero I do pay attention to the ones that have a backing to it. For example, kung nagkamali ako, like I made a narration, tapos mayroong factually mali doon, I will accept that. And I will apologize and correct. That way, wala kang bakit
Correct.
sasama ang loob mo? Nagkamali ka naman talaga. So it's easier to meet these things head on. As for the rest of it, minsan, ito si Atty. Topacio, magaling siya sa mga ganyan eh. Sometimes you answer them with devastating wit. So, kasi idol ko to si Atty. Topacio sa social media eh. When you crush them, you leave nothing.
Anyway, speaking of crush, tayo, sanay na tayo eh. Kumbaga sa kwan, balat kalabaw na tayo.
That's true.
Hindi na nga pwedeng gawing balbakwa yung ating balat eh. No?
Wala na.
Anyway,
Sayang.
pero for the average Filipino na nagiging subjected to yung mga online bashing, bullying, di ba?
Yes,
Etc. Anong advice mo on how to handle these things? Kasi to some, it goes to the extent na nagiging mental health problem na eh.
That's true.
Lalo na sa
Anong
school.
advice mo? What secrets would you share para hindi sila maapektuhan?
Do you remember some years ago, there's this kid was going to go into the MRT or LRT, tapos sinesearch yata siya. And then, hindi siya pinayagan ng guard. Do you remember this?
Ay, yung
And then
Amalayer
she
ba
said-
yun?
Yes.
Naging kaibigan ko yun ha, yung babaeng
I
yun.
felt so bad for her because the bashing was universal. But I thought that she made sense. But she talked about it and she said that there was a time she considered self-destruction. And, dun ko na-realize that, sometimes even the crowd will get it wrong. The mob will get it wrong. So, what other people say about you, my advice would be, what other people say about you doesn't define you.
Yes.
That's not who you are. Or if you feel that there's some truth to what they're saying, it also, as long as you're alive, you can change. You can address it.
Correct.
How you address it, no, that's what's going to define you. So you don't have to get upset. You don't have to kumbaga, succumb. Because that's exactly what your critics want you to do.
Sabi
Di
ng
ba?
professor ko, we will not succumb to chows.
Although tama
Totoong
siya.
storya yun. Professor ko yun. We will not succumb to chows.
Buti na lang nagkaintindihan
Succumb to chaos pala.
So, Atty. Trixie, a lot of young Filipinos are watching us today. And alam ko, ang daming kabataang Pilipino na talagang sinusubaybayan ka.
Oo,
So, di ba? So, my question would be...
Truthfully.
True. How can young people remain authentic online while also protecting themselves from misinformation, misinterpretation, and public backlash?
Well, no, ngayon kasi, as we were, when we first started sa political blogging, emotions were enough.
Right.
You would say what you feel. Sasabihin na, for example, I feel that this president didn't do this, this, and this. And that you feel that the country is heading this way. And it's perfectly acceptable to talk about your feelings. Feelings are neither right or wrong, di ba? But when you start talking about so-called facts, you have to be careful. But hanggang dun lang yung sasabihin ko, hindi ko sasabihin na you stop talking because you're afraid of making a mistake. For example, there's some things that are still in contention. For example, if a person is accused of a crime, we can't say that that person actually committed it. An accusation does not equal a fact. So, yung mga ganyan, I think this is where social media starts to take a turn. This is the learning period.
Right.
Na, nung una, Wild Wild West tayo, di ba?
Oo.
People could say anything. And it was accepted. Even among us, di ba? It was accepted. Kahit anong sabihin mo, tama o mali, masakit o hindi, you could say it. And for me, I welcome it. There has to be a space for these things. Eh.
Right.
And nobody will be looking over your shoulder and saying, oy, mali yan. Oy, you're dramatic, o ka, or things like that. They will say that anyway. And then to your face in social media, tatag ka pa. Tapos, pero... And that's what I like. But now, with the increasing repercussions, I can't say mali rin, there are some repercussions that are not acceptable. So for example, libelous statements, you can't get a reputation back. You can't scotch tape that together. So there has to be some kind of legal repercussions. The problem with social media is that there is yung implementation or execution of the laws are very spotty because of the presence of anonymous writers, posters, netizens who don't use their real names. So those who have access to law enforcement, sila yung nakakapagkaso. Pero ordinary people who feel aggrieved, they don't feel empowered enough to address it. So, yun yung, these are the different things that we must contend with. So when I feel bad kasi yung mga those who are coming into social media at this time, it's a time of flux. Nagbabago ang lahat. And the things that we could do before, you can't do anymore now. Yung universal bashing ni Miss Aymalaya, forgot her name. I'm sorry.
Going to that, Trixie. How do you feel about that proposal to pass a law, aside from yung existing na libel, cyber libel, chuchu, regulating social media? Are you for that or against that?
Regulating is a really bad word when we're talking about free speech.
Yung NBI na director na asawa niya kasi congresswoman, so when it comes from him, there's a very real possibility that it would at least reach the floor debates. So, how do you feel about that?
Well, there's always the Supreme Court and a challenge to its constitutionality. Pero ako, mas gusto ko yung to enlighten people because when you reach a certain level in government, tapos yun lang, like, ang dami kasing dynasties ang dami dyan who are in government, who have been in government most of their lives, and in many instances were sheltered from all of these negative comments. Yung nare-real talk sila online suddenly, and they want to control it. So what we want to do is, sit them down and say, wait, the world doesn't revolve around you. Hindi lang kayo yung nasasaktan dito. But we need a space that is much more liberal in allowing free speech, in allowing speech, even those that are hurtful, even those that are untrue. They have their space. For example, fiction. Well, how are you going to call that fake news?
Yes.
Diba? And of course, Galileo. Diba? The things that are constantly changing, how do you regulate news? How can you say something is new when or something is true when a week later, suddenly it's not true? You can say, for example, Atty. Topacio is single and then tomorrow hindi na. Diba? Pwedeng ganun So, how can you talk about regulation?
Yeah, ako naman, I'm always double sized.
I realize that. Pero small talk pa rin ito. So, ang point dito is that it can't be a knee-jerk reaction. We have to think about it, talk about it. And maybe, if you leave social media alone, it will regulate itself.
Maaari, yes.
Because that's what's happening now. Once you introduce a new value, halimbawa, yung value ngayon is fake news. Diba? Bawal yung fake news. But it evades definition. So social media will set the standard. Ano para sa atin ang fake news na nakaka-damage that should be addressed by the law? Hintayin natin, baka naman yung mga netizens habang tumatagal natututo.
Yun. Very good. Very well said. Ano mo, Ina, masyadong mabibigat ang ating mga topic. Baka mapitchit yung ating mga listeners. So, at this point, towards the second half of our program, let's try to keep it light.
Yes.
Oo, at meron po tayong mga questions dito para medyo, kumbaga sa pampababa ng tama, kumbaga. Umpisahan mo na ulit sa ladies first again.
Ito naman, ang next question ko po, Atty. Trixie. Ano ang side ni Atty. Trixie Cruz Angeles na hindi nakikita ng publiko?
There's a reason kung bakit di natin pinapakita. kaya hindi natin
I wonder
sinasabi.
what that means, but...
Well, most of it is all on social media. Most people know that that I have like 1 million cats and 2 dogs. Ganon. Yeah, I have a lot of cats. So, an embarrassing number of cats.
Cat person ka pala.
I'm 2 cats
Magkakasundo kayo ng Kinumpara saga.
I'm like 2 cats short of being the crazy cat lady. So, yeah, right.
Anyway, nandito na rin tayo sa personal side of Trixie Cruz Angeles. When you want to relax and leave the world behind, so to speak, anong klaseng music ang pinakikinggan mo?
Classical.
Classical. Pareho pala tayo. Ako jazz and classical
Yes. Your love for jazz music is well known. Jazz singer.
Tama. Galing yan si
So,
attorney eh.
yeah.
Musician din.
Hindi, ano lang, fan lang niya. Fan ko lang siya, kaya ganyan niya siya.
That is true.
Bias siya, bias.
That is true.
Parang bias
Autograph ako
media.
sa'yo mamaya, attorney. Pwede ba?
Magpapaselfie ako.
Papaselfie tayo. So what is one challenge that completely changed the way you see life, Attorney Trixie?
What challenge?
Challenge that completely changed the way you see life.
Well, I guess representing military officers accused of
Stressful yun.
accused of mutiny and coup
Oo,
d'etat.
mabigat yun.
Kasi,
I know the feeling,
diba,
actually.
diba, under the
Oo.
Articles of War, mutiny is punished by death by
Death,
musketry.
oo, sa courts martial, di ba?
Yes, death by musketry yun.
Oo.
And
Firing
I'm
squad
not-
pa.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was exempted under the law that took out the death penalty, di ba?
Oo.
Hindi pa sure.
Hindi
established
pa.
kasi.
It's a gray area kasi
Yes,
military law yun eh.
Correct. So it revised the revised penal code, it revised the original death penalty law. So hindi sure. I mean, I was
Not
pretty sure
military
hindi
law.
naman nila i-death by musketry yung clients ko.
Tatandaang pinatawan ng death by musketry at yung in-implement. Si Ninoy Aquino yata nag-death by musketry, di ba? Yun
Yes.
ang kanyang
General
sentence.
Court Martial number
Pero
2,
parang natupad yata doon sa airport,
Yun.
Yun lang.
Kulang lang sa due process.
Anyway, speaking of stress, yung mga pag-represent ng mga kanyang kliyente, what for you is the most stressful? Courtroom, live interview, or SOCMED?
Yun.
Ang stressful sa akin, any of those kung hindi ako nag-aral. Parang parang sa law school, di ba? Magre-recitation ka pero hindi ka
Recite.
naka-aral the night before. So lahat yan, if I hadn't studied my case, then I have to be in court. Halimbawa, I forget na, oh my gosh, I have a hearing tomorrow. Tapos kulang yung aral ko.
It happened to
Stressful
all of
sa akin
us.
talaga yun.
Biglang,
So,
uy, meron pala bukas. Di ba?
pagdating sa ganon, even social media, magla-live ka, tapos hindi mo masagot yung tanong, like you know half the
Oh,
answer.
interactive,
Kasi interactive siya. They'll spot you right away rin eh. So, I apologize in advance and say, for example, ay teka, hindi ko pa naaaral yan. Pero I feel like I'm letting my viewers down pagka ganun yung sagot. So, you eventually kailangan mo pa rin mag-aral.
Hindi naman siguro kasi no one is expected to know everything.
That's true,
Oo.
that's true. But still, di ba, you're there, people listen to you because they expect a certain amount of information at least. So kung marami ka ng sagot na, ay sorry, hindi ko pa naaaral. Medyo nakakahiya na yun, di ba?
So, Attorney Trixie, what motivates you po to keep going during your toughest days?
Sure, mate. I'd like to say the paycheck, but it's
Wow.
not much.
You know,
Hindi rin eh.
legitimate yun.
Diba?
Dapat ikahiya yun eh.
Oo.
Diba? It's a living after all.
Correct.
Diba?
We make
It's a
living,
profession.
oo.
Diba?
So,
Tama.
lawyering is a profession. So, yeah, it's the paycheck. But not really then. At some point, kasi, when you're comfortable enough, di ba, meron ka ng opportunity to choose your cases.
Tama.
So, okay lang yan. But what really keeps you going is, when I started in practice, what I would do is, if I had a successful hearing, I would treat myself. So, I'd go to the bookstore, I'd buy a book. So, yung a book that I have been denying myself.
Yan ang
Kasi
tinatawag
dati
ng mga
mahal
Gen
eh.
Zers na self-love.
Diba?
Ngayon, di ba? May
Oo.
definition na siya ngayon eh.
So,
Self-love.
Meron na pala. So, yun, I would do a little self-love kasi mahal pa sa akin ang books noon. So, if you had to spend, let's say, 2,000 pesos on a book, masakit na eh. Kasi halos buong appearance mo nakain na.
Oo nga eh. No, natandaan ko rin yung 1,000 per appearance, 500 peso pa nga eh.
Oh, yun.
I'm not old.
Ay, oo. Parang ganon. Pero yung so, I would do that so that meron kang reward at the end of the
Tama naman yun.
day. Or at least meron ka. And then at the end of your case, mas matindi pa yung tweets mo. You get
Lalo na
5
kung panalo. Bago may
Pag
success fee.
panalo, oo. So, with or without a success fee, bibili pa rin ako ng libro. Or I would be able to afford at least more books, di ba?
Oo,
So,
tama.
so yun, I always do that. So, I reward myself. Kunwari, ngayon, nagagawa ako ng thesis sa archaeology.
Archaeology.
Yes,
Oh, that's
I'm
one
taking
side
my
of you.
MA.
Bakit archaeology?
Because it's about conservation also. We're doing,
okay.
it's cultural work. Remember, I was, heritage
Ano
was
nga pala,
the
National Commission
yes,
for Culture and the
Vice
Arts.
Commissioner
Yes,
for
of course,
Cultural Heritage.
Of course, oo.
So, but we pioneered the laws on cultural conservation, pero I wanted to have deeper understanding of what we were trying to protect. So I took my MA and I'm finishing it.
Wow.
Hindi namin
hopefully,
alam yun, ha? That's
in archaeology.
a side of you. Very few people. Well,
Ay,
hindi ko nga
talaga,
alam yun eh.
oo.
And
So,
I thought I
yun.
knew you well, ha?
Wow. Oo nga, no? I thought,
Hindi ko alam yun. Hindi ko alam. Alam mo ba yun, Nina?
Hindi rin po eh.
Oh, bigyan
So
mo na.
yun, we have, sana matapos. My professors are hoping na matapos na ako.
Anyway, speaking of history, archaeology, may compound question ako para sa iyo.
Sure.
Oo. Number one, if you could have dinner with any one historical figure, yung wala na rito sa mundo, no? Who would it be? Second question, if you could become anyone who is alive right now, who would it be?
Uy.
Okay, interview with any person who, in history. I think, sino ba yung sino yung saint? Was it Saint Anthony, whose mother kept praying for him all the time? Siya ba
You're
yun,
talking to the wrong person because I'm not Catholic.
So there's
Wala
this one
kaming
saint,
santo.
I'm really bad at this. There's this one saint whose mother also became a saint, Saint Augustine.
Ayun.
Okay. His mother became a saint because she constantly prayed for him all throughout his life. Kasi he was a wastrel, he was a drunkard, he was a sinner for most of his life, and then he found God.
So it's about redemption.
Yes.
Something that Marcos Jr. should consider while it's still not too
Talagang
late.
tinawid mo, ha? I wasn't gone, ha? But thank you for doing that. But yes, so I want to know, how did the conversion happen? How did he redeem himself? I think these things are interesting. Let's find out how people change. I like people who redeem themselves. I like
Yung buhay naman, na ikaw,
correct.
magiging ikaw yon. Sino yon? Anyone, Pilipinas or abroad, anyone who's still alive.
Alive right now. Naku, yun yung mahirap kasi when they're alive, hindi ka masyadong believe eh. Tapos pag namatay na, then you realize, oh my gosh,
What I mean
importante
is,
pala to.
kung magiging ikaw yon, para yung will ay mapupunta sa kanya.
Okay.
Sinong gusto mong maging?
Who would I want to be? Or
Yes, who's alive. Hindi lang limitado sa Pilipinas, even internationally.
Uy, mahirap yan.
Si
Teka.
Trump, si Putin, si
Who
Netanyahu.
would I have wanted to be?
Oo.
You know what? This is weird. Queen Elizabeth.
Talaga?
The late one. You know, she had a very long reign.
Oo.
And it was,
second yatang
and
longest reign, ano?
Correct. She hit most of the historical highlights in the 20th century. So yung vantage point niya, she was a volunteer during the war.
She
And,
started her reign even before World War II, di ba?
Correct. So very interesting from that vantage point and looking at history, being part of history during the times when the changes were most being made.
Nabutan pa nga niyang TikTok eh.
Correct.
Oh, can you imagine that? From
Grabe,
pre-World War II na start ng reign, nung nawala siya, may TikTok na. Ewan ko lang kung nag-TikTok siya.
Diba? From the start of television, remember this? From the start of television to the fulfillment of social media. Kumbaga,
Yeah, oo.
sa kasagsagan ng social media, andun siya. So imagine being a witness from her vantage point of that entire period
Now
of
that
our
you mentioned
history.
it, no?
Diba?
It's mind-boggling.
Correct.
Di ba?
So that, I think it would be mostly for the events that she witnessed or was even a part of.
Now, I'm starting to get curious, Attorney Trixie. Kung hindi ka po abogado or hindi mo pinasok ang mundo ng politika, ano kaya ang ginagawa ni Attorney Trixie ngayon?
Rockstar.
Wow, heavy, pare.
Heavy metal pa. So, not that I knew anything about it.
Nagulat ako actually noon, ha? That answer just blew me away.
No, but I've always been interested in music. Yung youngest son ko nga is studying music composition. So,
Talaga?
yeah, that's my youngest. So, but it has always been something of a, well, it's not even a hobby. It's always been part of my life. My mother played the piano. She gave me, she She enrolled me in voice lessons, piano lessons, dance lessons, all of these things.
Talaga, complete pack. Alam mo ang tawag dyan sa industry, sa entertainment industry, yung marunong kumanta, marunong sumayaw, marunong mag-acting, the complete package.
Yun.
Oo,
I
complete
also was
package ka
in
pala.
short films
Talaga?
when we were in college. So, of course, I don't know how to play the guitar, but I do play the piano. So, not with any level of expertise, pero yung ganon, when I was studying in
Very
the
interesting ito, ha? Nagulat talaga ako noon. Anyway, speaking of your mom,
My mother, yes.
ano yung, eto medyo talagang personal na ito, no? Anong luto ng nanay mo ang paborito mo? Na comfort
madami
food
yan,
mo?
but
Na hanggang ngayon naghahanap ka pa ng parang luto ni mami o ni nanay.
Ay, nako. Laoya.
Ano yun?
It's a Marikina
What's
dish.
that?
Laoya comes from the term laolya, which means the pot. So it's in other provinces, it's really nilaga. But in Marikina,
Paano yun?
it's Swedish.
Nilagang, anong meat yun? Naging curious tuloy ako.
Buntot ng baka.
Oxtail!
Yes.
Parang yung rabo de toro. Ganun ba
Something
yun?
like
Pero
that.
boiled, ano? Anong
It's
asang
boiled.
Paluluto ko nga bukas doon sa aking,
It
sa aking
has,
cook.
of course, it has vegetables.